This is $900 worth of parts, probably closer to $1,000, and it's going on this $230 bike right behind me. This is the Ozark Trail G1 Explorer, and I've talked about it many times of how it's a really solid bike. However, when the customer who introduced me to this bike came to me with the crazy idea of building a Walmart war machine, as he calls it. So we decided to spec it out with some pretty solid parts, especially for a Walmart bike, and see how good we could get the bike. Now, yes, he and I do know that this is probably not the most cost-effective way, but who in the world has a Walmart bike that's going to be worth by the end of it? This will be a pretty complicated build because you are switching some major drivetrain parts, some of which include going from a square taper bottom bracket to going to a Shimano Holotech bottom bracket. This is so we can ensure we could fit the Microshift Sword crankset, which is a solid 2x10 crankset, and we are going from a 2x7 to a 2x10 crankset. I am very excited for this. Also, some of you bike mechanics may be pointing out, how the heck are you going to fit a 10-speed cassette on a freewheel? Well, I'm changing out the hub. This is going to require a wheel build, so I did get a Shimano rear free hub, which is a 10-speed free hub. That's what we're going for. And we are pairing this with the Microshift Sword 11 to 38 tooth 10-speed cassette. Also, one thing we cannot forget is that we are changing both the rear and front derailleur. We're going with the Sword group set, and these are pretty nice. I'm excited to try them out. I personally have no experience with these, but they look like they'll work out. And then to handle all the technicality of that power, we're going for the Sword drop bar brakes and shifters. I checked a lot on how this will work out. I'm hoping, the only worry I have is that the bottom bracket won't work because it's some, standard Walmart square taper on this bike. But overall, I think it will work. And then we are rocking this 10-speed KMC chain because KMC is a beautiful brand. You do not need to spend like 60 bucks on a SRAM or Shimano chain. These KMC chains last literally as long and they're like a quarter of the price. So I'd say they're worth it. I will be installing everything on this bike and you will see it through my GoPro. So let's get you guys on my head. No sus comments, please.
Starting off, we're taking off the back wheel because that's where all the drivetrain components are connected to. Then we're just going to go ahead and take off the front wheel as well because, why not? And now the most satisfying thing you could do as a bike mechanic is just popping off the crimps on the end of the cables. And then I'm going to pop off the chain. This chain was a bit stubborn, so I had to use the pliers. Luckily, we are not using this chain again, so please don't worry about that.
As you can see, already taking off some parts of the bike, some of this Walmart stuff is just not built to last. It's already rusting and this bike is like 2 months old, if that. But I'm excited to put on some really substantial parts that'll make it look way better.
Now it's time for the long and annoying process of taking off all the drivetrain parts. Firstly, I like to start with the pedals because those can sometimes take a long time if they were installed improperly. And there's a cool trick too. If you pedal forward, the pedals will just eventually come off. Now I'm grabbing my trusty dusty air gun with the size 8mm bit on it, and I'm just pulling off the cranks. It's very simple. Just the ugga dugga away and boom. No more crank bolt. Now I'm gonna get my crank puller, crank it in there, and then whack the crap out of it. Because if you never remove the crank from a square taper bottom bracket, it just mind boggles me how the heck they stay on there so well. But nonetheless, we got both sides off with just a little bit of whacking. Next up, I'm gonna get my even bigger ugga dugga gun, ensuring to set it to the forward motion so I can take off the drive side of the bottom bracket, because if you did not know, they are reverse threaded. Then reverse that bad boy and take off the other side. And finally, the simplest part of them all, just removing the derailleurs with a 5mm Allen key.
I just stripped down pretty much the whole drivetrain, and this thing is looking very naked. If you are wondering, I have replaced the brakes as well. This was due to a previous job, but these brakes are not stock. They are some Shimano Tourney TX, so they're pretty good cable-driven brakes. Also, we're going to have to take off these parts, so I guess that is next. This bike is going to be looking super naked.
Starting off, we got to remove those pesky Walmart M caps. When removing them with the flathead, they did break on me sadly. And then you just unwrap the bar halfway because all we really need to access is just the levers to take them off. Then using a T30 or maybe a T35, I'm not too sure on that, I remove the levers and save them for later because the cables are still good if you did not know. And it's just that simple.
And there we have it, folks. Everything is off of this bike. Just took off the drop bar levers and yeah, I'm excited to put those on. I might put those on in the later half because I still have to build the wheel, but nonetheless, this thing is yeah, it's definitely not rideable right now.
And now we get started with the best part about any build, installing the drivetrain. First thing we got to do is grab the Shimano Holotech 2 bottom bracket and get it in there. I love Shimano Holotech over SRAM Dub bottom brackets just because of the fitting. I love how the spindle holes are the same size on each side rather than it being different sizes on each side. If you don't know, SRAM Dub bottom brackets are a 25 on the drive side and a 22 on the other side, and it needs a fitting, and there's just too many damn moving parts, so it always goes wrong. SRAM Holotech, however, never had a problem with it. Then I like to grease the high points of my spindle as well as the threads, and just give it a little bit of smacks on the back to get the spindle through the bottom bracket. Same idea with the drive side. Make sure to not torque down the compression bolt more than 1 to 2 Newton meters, because if you do too much, your spindle just does not spin. But do follow an adequate torque spec when you do that. And of course, those pinch bolts, I think they're around 10 to 12. It really depends what brand. Next up is to install the derailleur. This rear derailleur looks a bit chunky, but it's beautiful nonetheless. And the front looks sleek as well. I believe they complement each other, probably because they're part of the same group set, but they look pretty nice. And finally, all we need to do is just install the pedals. And this time, the trick is to rotate them backwards.
Boom! We got most of the drivetrain components on. This is a beautiful crank set. I'm very happy that it worked with the SRAM Holotech or Shimano Holotech stuff. I don't know. This is nice though. It's a really well built and a nice finish, honestly. It's like aluminum finish, something like that. But it's beautiful. And then of course the Sword 10-speed rear derailleur. It does look a bit chunky, but that's most likely because it is a rear derailleur. And then boom, you got your front derailleur, looks solid as well. Now I have to do the pain in the part of building the wheel, taking off the cassette, all that. So that might take a little bit of time.
Yeah, you know that feeling when you're playing like Forza Horizon or something and you just want to like hit Y so you could reverse the car because you just totaled it? Yeah, I wish I had that action in real life, because I don't know how the heck I built a wheel that needed a disc brake mount and did not realize that it did not have a disc brake mount on the hub. Like, you could literally see it in this video. Like right there, there's no disc brake mount right there. I mean, it was a pretty solid wheel nonetheless. Like, don't get me wrong, I really liked how this wheel was built. It just didn't have any disc brake mount. I literally put the whole thing together, and yeah, no, I don't know.
So I just got the new free hub. This is the Shimano Dior free hub. It should fit the 10-speed, and it does have rotor mount. So let's build up the wheel, because that was a pain in the process of building the wheel and then taking it apart. Let's go to my GoPro.
So now I'm going to show you how to build the wheel properly. First thing you got to do is take the correct hub out of the box and then slip one of the spokes through one side. I like to start with one side going one way, because once you get that circular motion going, you get motion, I guess.
Did you eat?
Then rip it onto the other side facing the other way. I like to do a triple cross, I believe it's called. At least that's what I call it. Basically, every 3 spoke holes, there's 1 spoke on each side. So for example, if we have a spoke on the left side, if we count 1, 2, 3, then there will be another spoke on the left side. Once you get it built, it'll be so wobbly and undished, it's insane. You wouldn't even know you have a wheel, but that's what takes time. First off, you got to make sure all your spokes are tightened with the spoke nipples inside of it, and then you're going to true it correctly.
A perfectly trued wheel. It's maybe not dished, but it's trued. Well, still got a little bit of adjustment. Nonetheless, I'm happy we got the hub on. Took about like 20 minutes. Now we got to put on the disc, the cassette, and then throw this thing on the bike, and hopefully it'll work out.
Now that we got the wheel done, I call this one the home stretch. First thing we gotta do is take out those oh so beautiful brand new brakes and shifters. And dude, honestly, the build quality of these things are really nice. They are a bit chunkier than what you may see as like a Di2 shifter drop bar brake, but honestly, I like the way they feel in my hands, so we're definitely going with them. Only downside is the cables do not come pre-installed, so you may be looking a bit as to where the cables may have to go. But once you got that in there, I like to slide them all the way through their jackets and then situate the drop bars onto the bike. Then once the cables are tight onto the jackets, I'm going to hit up the jackets with some taping so they do not move around inside the wrap. And then I just decided to use the exact same bar tape because it was still essentially brand new, and wrap that bad boy up. After installing the back wheel, I then could install the chain. And the good thing about this chain is I did not have to size it. It was the exact perfect size you needed, and I was kind of surprised by that. So after popping that quick link on, I had to hit it up with a tune. And then cut the cables to adequate length, ensuring to put the crimp on the back.
And there we have it, folks. A completed $100 Walmart bike. I know this is a mess, but we could clean that up with a little bit of movie magic. And boom, easy as that. And now let's get on to more specs of the bike. If you guys wondering what the specs are, I'm gonna try to list them off the top of my head. Starting off first, let's go from front to back. We got the Microshift Sword, drop bar, brakes, and shifters. Microshift Sword group set, including the cranks, front derailleur, rear derailleur, and 10-speed cassette, as well as a changeout of the Shimano Dior rear free hub, and then finally a KMC 10-speed chain. Sorry, I also replaced the bottom bracket, so that's also whatever this amount would be. But we replaced the front and rear brakes. They're Shimano Tourney TX brakes. And of course, here's the final list of everything, including the bike, how much it cost. And yeah, it was a pretty expensive build. Some of you may be asking, why the heck would you do this to a Walmart bike? Me and my client asked us the same exact question, and we're like, why the hell not? Because it was a really fun job to do, and this bike, nobody has it. It's literally a one of one. Who the heck does this to a Walmart bike? Thank you guys for watching to the end of the video. If you did like it, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to see what this bike looked before and after, make sure to hit up my Instagram. It is the exact same @ as the one below, or, you know, the one on this channel. Thank you guys for coming along for the ride.